Hey traders, Raghee here, and in this free video we're going to dive into Canadian dollar, the Canadian dollar ETF, and crude oil. And this is a common trio that I like to trade, and I want to talk about the connection, what these symbols are, and what my levels are. So it's typically going to start with the Canadian dollar because this is where the central bank, the economy, is going to just be as clear as can be about what's happening in Canada. And we see weakness in the Canadian dollar. You can see the overall downtrend. It took a pause, but I'm still a big fan of the short side of the trade. In fact, in our Forex mastery, we have been short Canadian dollar against the US dollar, against the Japanese yen. And so if you're a futures trader, can you play Canadian dollar? You can via the 6C. And if you take a look at some of the ranges to the upside, you'll notice that in this area here is a level that I think corresponds pretty well with nearly a -1 V-score, and that is going to be a really good area to think about getting short. Well, simultaneously, there are narratives in the EWC. Now, the EWC is the MSCI iShares of Canada. I'm bearish Canada as well. I mean, the Canadian dollar is reflecting some of the headwinds for the Canadian economy, and the EWC is loaded up with Canadian banks. And I think you see financials struggling in the US, and I think playing EWC is one way to play the financials in Canada. Again, namely all those banks. So again, top of the range. And that for me is going to be pretty much tests of this level right here. That's the current Darvis and the value area high for the current month, a volume derived resistance level. So again, do I want to be short EWC? Absolutely, and that's where I'd like to build that position. Now, why do we see some of this struggle happening in the Canadian economy? There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but the Canadian economy is the currency itself and the economy is very reliant on exports, and crude oil, of course, energies are a big part of that. I do not see a trajectory significantly higher for crude. Overall downtrend. We're consolidating right now. This is actually the July contract of crude, and I recommend most folks go out to CLN or CLQ for crude, and you'll see it's a very similar scenario. I'm looking for a move to the downside. In fact, today, when we had a draw on crude from the EIA, you saw crude head higher, and it was very quickly faded after reaching about 26.90 on the July contract, and you can see where we sit right now, below 26. In fact, we were down around 25.30 for a short while, around 2.30. Do I expect the market to retrace its steps and perhaps test the 20 to 17 level? Absolutely. I think it's going to take the Canadian dollar with it. I think it's going to take EWC with it. And this is why I like this trio of shorts around the currency of the Canadian dollar, but playing it with the Gambell personality of the crude oil market, and then also the EWC ETF. All right, that's the way I like to put together trades. I call it a futures first type of approach, where understanding Canadian dollar futures and crude oil futures set up the whole harmony for this trade. Hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next update.